We hear a lot about passages in Isaiah that are cited as prophecies in the New Testament text. For example, Isaiah 7:14, chapter 53. Could you talk a bit about the use of Isaiah by the New Testament authors and how their use might differ or not from what they meant in their original contexts?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, from one perspective, one one can sit back and say, with this new historical knowledge, we now know that some of the ways that Old Testament prophecies were used are just silly. So, but this became serious. There were debates in the Enlightenment period that really were quite threatening. So it's not these debates that arose over Isaiah. I don't want to just poo-poo them as kind of history's finally triumphing over simple pedestrian minds that couldn't that can't really think beyond the box, because real issues really arose. There was a famous debate in the Enlightenment period that suggested, look, if the kind of Messiah that Jesus wasn't really outlined in the Hebrew Bible, then to what extent can Christianity, which is really, if you translate the meaning of Christianity, it's the religion of the Messiah. If there was no messianic expectation that fit Jesus well, then what right do you even have to be called a Christianity? And we're vulnerable at that point. The religion doesn't really work if these ties between the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament don't work. My friend who wrote this book, The Old Testament is Dying, Brent Strawn, who teaches at Emory, outlines a pretty solid case that without the Old Testament, the New Testament just falls. It can't be understood. Its motifs, its theology make no sense. Marcion wins, and the part of the reason that Christian spirituality is in decline is because of the rampant Marcionism, the rampant disconnection of the Old Testament from the New. So there's more at issue here, and the way that, I'm sorry to make this so complicated,
No.
Josh, but the way that this worked itself out is that the people who defended against this notion that there were ties between the Old and the New, they came back and they said, well, the ties are there, they just work the other way. What the New Testament writers did is they retrospectively, given their knowledge of God, were able to go back and re-enliven the Old Testament texts with this new revelation of what God was doing. And suddenly they painted a new picture that brought everything together. But the problem was that didn't fully solve the debate. It's just too easy of a solution to see these passages as retrospectively meaning that a suffering Messiah was coming. So the church was kind of at really at a vulnerable point with the Enlightenment until people started realizing, wait a minute, this mathematical approach doesn't work. Spinoza is wrong. There isn't just one solution, and you don't need to therefore retreat to a retrospective reading. So if you go back into texts like the famous one, the virgin shall conceive in Isaiah 7, it's not all hanging on the translation of Alma, the Hebrew term, and whether it means young woman or virgin. And that's where people went wrong. They got all hung up in the history of the rise of modernism over the we're good linguists, we know philology, we should be able to determine whether the text is talking about a virgin or a young woman. we should be able to figure that out. And this debate goes way back to Martin Luther, who, again, based on philology and concordance work, argued that he'd pay a lot of money to anyone who could prove that he was wrong, and so on. But that's actually not what this text is about. And how you know that is, again, you go in and you see this reference to Emmanuel. This woman bears a child named named Emmanuel, which in Hebrew is Emmanuel, God with us. And right within Isaiah's chapters 7, 8, 9, and so forth, you see redactors over time playing with that meaning. So it's again, it's like Klein said, this figure has a life of his own. It's not a window. Yes, we have to acknowledge there was a child born in the 8th century that had relevance to Isaiah's immediate confrontation with Ahaz. You don't want to deny that. That's why the text makes sense in the original situation, Driver's analogy of prophecy. But it didn't just mean that. It's not mathematically reducible to just that mooring, because you can see over time that the redactors in Hezekiah's time, a whole new monarchy reapplied Emmanuel in a different way. And then further redactors later, after the Assyrian era, reapplied the term Emmanuel in an eschatological context, pointing to the far future when kingdom come. So within the text itself, there's a development of you can see that you can see the quality of this text as poetry and expansive vision working itself out, and the redactors recognizing that no one fulfillment of this prophecy exhausted it. And it had an expansive life that kept reapplying itself. So one of my professors, Bob Wilson, back at Yale, talked about, the real problem in interpreting prophecy is not how to deal with prophetic, the disconfirmation of prophecy, but how do you deal with the fulfillment of prophecy? If the text is fulfilled, why did the redactors keep reapplying it and keep reassessing its wider, more expansive, fuller sense, the sensus plenior? And that's the case with some of these messianic prophecies. Why didn't they just stop? Okay, the child was born. The prophecy came true. The Syro-Ephraimic coalition stopped. They were defeated. End of story. Why do you keep talking about Emmanuel?